Part 26. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 251. This is the advantage of the Hope Base. No matter where you want to go, you have to pass through the Black Dragon Bridge. Wang Feng did not call Lu Wanting because they could be said to have worked very late last night, and when they finally went to bed, Wang Feng he also made Lu Wanting drink the second-level evolution potion, so Lu Wanting should not wake up yet. Arriving at the Black Dragon Bridge, Wang Feng was surprised to find that Zhang Xiu was supervising the engineering team who were demolishing the bridge. Fortunately, they arrived early. If it had been an hour or two at night, even if they could pass, the hurricane would not be able to pass. Seeing the hurricane coming, Zhang Xiu blocked the way politely. Everyone in the car looked at Wang Feng. They were reluctant to provoke Zhang Xiu, a girl with a bold mouth. The helpless Wang Feng had to reluctantly walk out of the car door. Bravely walk towards Zhang Xiu, the conscience of heaven and earth. He will definitely only be brave this time. Huh? Feng, should I call you brother-in-law? Ting Ting is 2 months older than me. Zhang Xiu saw Wang Feng and said with a smile, "Where's Ting Ting?" Humph. I knew she would be taken by you. I couldn't get out of bed. How many times did you do it last night? Did you kill Ting Ting until she begged for mercy? Wang Feng was sweating profusely from Zhang Xiu's words. How could this crazy girl dare to say anything? I gave Ting Ting an evolution potion last night. She is in the process of evolving now. When she wakes up, she will be a second-level evolver. I gave your share to Ting Ting and will give it to her when she comes. Yours. Wang Feng quickly changed the subject and told Zhang Xiu about the evolution potion. This trick really worked. When Zhang Xiu heard that he still had his share, he immediately cheered, "Yeah. Thank you, brother-in-law." Then he rushed up and hugged Wang Feng's arm, looked up at Wang Feng, and said with a bright smile, "Brother-in-law, how can I thank you? How about I tell Ting Ting that I will marry you together?" Wang Feng was embarrassed and shook his head, "No need. Just thank Ting Ting. She asked me to prepare it for you." "No need." Zhang Xiu tilted her head and looked at Wang Feng with a strange look. "You can't do it, right?" Wang Feng hesitated and didn't know how to answer. Say okay. This girl might have to inspect the goods on the spot. Say no? Pooh. How can a man say no? Unexpectedly, Wang Feng's look fell in Zhang Xiu's eyes, which further confirmed her guess. "Oh. So you can't do it? Then Ting Ting is at a loss? It's better to marry you than to marry me. No wonder when I went back to accompany you last night, you only gave her the evolution potion and didn't give her what she should eat." When talking about what he should eat, Zhang Xiu glanced down, making Wang Feng even more depressed. "Okay. Xiu. We have to cross the bridge, let those brothers give way first," Wang Feng said helplessly. "We are in a hurry." "What do you want to know?" "Just ask Ting Ting when the time comes." "Crossing the bridge? The bridge will be demolished soon. You will not be able to come back." Zhang Xiu stared. "Didn't you see that half of it has been demolished? We are going to make the Black Dragon Bridge retractable. So the middle part needs to be demolished and rebuilt." "I know, can't it be completed in a week?" "We won't be back until a week later." Wang Feng just wants to leave this crazy girl quickly. "Okay," Zhang Xiu agreed, then ran up to the Black Dragon Bridge and directed the engineering team members to get out of the way. Lu Feng quickly drove the hurricane onto the Black Dragon Bridge, and Wang Feng also quickly jumped onto the top of the hurricane. Followed and left. After crossing the bridge, Wang Feng waved to the guardian soldiers stationed here, and then said, "After the bridge is almost demolished, you can retreat over there and pay attention to safety." The guardian warriors saluted Wang Feng together, their eyes full of admiration. A second-level enhancer who was responsible for leading these guardian warriors saluted and said loudly, "Yes. It wasn't until Wang Feng and the others gradually disappeared from sight that these guardian warriors put down their hands, resumed their defensive posture, and carefully watched the movements around them. It was at this time that Wang Feng got into the carriage through the entrance and exit of the roof. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered the carriage, he found that all the people in the carriage were looking at him with strange expressions. He suddenly realized that it was Zhang Xiu who was crazy. What the girl said just now caused trouble for herself. Damn! What are you looking at? Of course I can't do it. But this is the situation just now. If it were you, would you dare to answer? Do you believe that crazy girl dared to ask you to take off your pants on the spot for verification? Wang Feng said angrily. Several people thought for a while and felt that this was really the case, so the doubts on their faces disappeared. Hey! I'm talking about Li Gu. I remember you said that this girl named Zhang Xiu is very good. Isn't she interesting? Do you want us to help match her? Meng Fei looked at Li Gu with a smirk on his face and said. Hearing Meng Fei's words, Li Gu jumped up immediately. Old Meng! Stop talking nonsense. When did I say that? Li Gu indeed said this. When he first saw Zhang Xiu, he was attracted by Zhang Xiu. In fact, if Zhang Xiu had not spoken, her appearance alone would be absolutely stunning in the world, comparable to Lu Wanting, but that scene just now, these words directly revealed that she was experienced in that area, and she might be a little girl who could kill thousands of people. After hearing those words, Li Gu was of course unable to admit it to death. Li Gu, Wang Feng hesitated for a moment and said, if you like Xiu, you can chase her. I tell you, don't look at her speaking so boldly, that's just her disguise. In fact, haha. Forget it. Anyway, I'll tell you that Xiu is definitely not the kind of girl you imagine. After hearing Wang Feng's words, Li Gu lowered his head and thought for a while, but then he returned to normal. Wang Feng shook his head secretly, knowing that Li Gu finally gave up. Lu Wanting told Wang Feng that the reason why Zhang Xiu spoke so boldly was completely after the end of the world, in order to protect herself, because the camp they were in was not so dark, and Lu Wanting herself was the leader of the camp, so no one dared to force Zhang Xiu. It can be said that the women in their camp are much happier than most women in this end of the world. However, due to her outstanding appearance, Zhang Xiu was still pursued by many men. Even Xiao Wu had pursued Zhang Xiu before, so Zhang Xiu began to become aggressive in her language, which made the men who pursued her lose face on the spot. Because of this, her suitors gradually decreased, but she also developed this habit and could not change it for a while. However, seeing Li Gu's expression, Wang Feng did not want to say more. A traditional soldier like Li Gu must have some resistance to this aspect. Since they had to pass through Haki City, Lu Feng was familiar with the route. They arrived at Haki City in a short while. Looking at the empty Haki City, Lu Feng said helplessly, NND. So many good things, but I can't move them back. It will be depressing if others snatch them away. Don't think too much. What belongs to us must be ours, Wang Feng said, and then patted Lu Feng on the shoulder. Old Lu. Stop the car and wait for me. I'll go absorb the strengthening liquid of those zombies. Don't waste it. Because of this large-scale evolution, the apocalypse points in Apocalypse are in urgent need again. Although these ordinary zombies can only make up one apocalypse point, there are so many of them. Duan Lei and his team resisted the zombie attacks for more than 10 hours, and killed millions of zombies. Converting them into apocalypse points is also a considerable income. Okay. Go ahead. Let's go around here and see if there are any special discoveries, Lu Feng said. Okay, Wang Feng agreed, then climbed out of the hurricane from the upper exit and jumped down. When Duan Lei and his men entered Haki City before, they killed zombies along the way, but Wang Feng didn't take those zombies seriously. He rushed directly to the zombie platform. When he arrived in front of the platform, Wang Feng sighed. It's not good to have too many zombies. How long will it take to absorb them one by one? Fortunately, Tiankai can now absorb remotely. Although it can only absorb the energy from organisms within 1 meter of Wang Feng, and it must be fatally injured, it is much better than before. At least this situation is just right. Otherwise, if he really absorbs one by one, I'm afraid Wang Feng won't go anywhere today. After Wang Feng escaped from death this time, his Tiankai has been upgraded to the next level, but because he was busy before, he didn't have time to ask Tiankai in detail what changes had happened. It was not until last night, when the madness with Lu Wanting ended and Lu Wanting took the second level evolution potion and fell asleep, that Wang Feng had time to ask Tiankai. Apocalypse has now reached the third level. This is because those Kali aliens injected a large amount of life essence into Wang Feng's body during the process of transforming Wang Feng. Apocalypse has already merged with Wang Feng, so Apocalypse has also benefited greatly in this process. Because those aliens not only injected a large amount of life essence, but also strengthened Wang Feng's body. Because this kind of strengthening is aimed at Wang Feng's whole body, it consumes a lot of their life energy and special substances of different species, and this kind of substance is more beneficial to Apocalypse, so Apocalypse secretly absorbed a lot at that time. Because it is to strengthen Wang Feng's whole body, it feels that where Wang Feng's body is weak, it will allocate more energy there, so Apocalypse's absorption was not discovered by those Kali aliens. Although they know the existence of Apocalypse, no one really recognizes Apocalypse as the master, so they don't understand Apocalypse. There is one person who really understands Apocalypse, but unfortunately he is not here. However, Apocalypse stopped after absorbing enough energy to upgrade, and did not absorb it infinitely. Otherwise, I am afraid that Wang Feng's body transformation is not over now. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 252. After Tiankai's advancement, he can synthesize higher-level potions, but now Tiankai's points are really. Wang Feng slowly walked through the battlefield full of corpses, letting Tiankai absorb all the life energy of the dead zombies, but he could only leave the platform until the end, because the thickness of the platform reached 1.5 meters, and the corpses of the zombies at the bottom were beyond Tiankai's absorption range, so Wang Feng left them until the end. About an hour later, except for the corpses of the zombies that made up the platform, all other zombies on the battlefield had been absorbed by Tiankai. Wang Feng looked at the zombie platform, sighed, and directly circled around the outermost part of the platform, and then strolled around the top of the platform. As for the bottom, Wang Feng had to give up temporarily. It was too troublesome to move them away, so he would talk about it later. Anyway, these corpses will be transported back in the future. Seeing that it was almost done, Wang Feng looked up and looked around, wanting to see where Lu Feng and the others were. As a result, because Haki City was too big, he looked for a long time but couldn't see them. He took out the walkie-talkie and shouted, but there was no sound. It seemed that they were not within 5 kilometers. Wang Feng shook his head and walked directly to the other side of Haki City. Anyway, their goal was to cross Haki City. However, before Wang Feng got out of Haki City, he called Lu Feng and the others. It turned out that they had found a military goods store and were searching for supplies inside. Looking at Lu Feng and the others who were happily moving things into the car, Wang Feng couldn't help shaking his head. What was there in the reserve base? They were interested in the imitations inside, which was really wrong. However, since they were moving things, Wang Feng was not going to be idle. He went to other shops on the same street and swept away all the edible food inside. Wang Feng also accidentally found a pharmacy, and naturally swept away everything without hesitation. Even condoms were not spared, maybe they could take them back to play with as balloons for children. When Wang Feng came out this time, he cleaned up the apocalypse space. Except for leaving behind the bodies of several mutant beasts, some spare clothes and necessities, he didn't bring out anything else, because there were only 7 of them going out this time, and they were all masters, so they didn't need so many things. Of course, he still left nearly 10,000 arrows. This was his weapon, and he had to keep some at all times. After Lu Feng and his men emptied the military goods store, they clamored to clear all the shops on this street and fill up Wang Feng's space. Wang Feng couldn't help but have a headache. Are the people he brought soldiers or robbers? Why can't he walk when he sees good things? Let's go. I have to pass by here when I come back. Besides, it's full now. What if I see something better in front? Wang Feng said in a tempting tone. Lu Feng and the others hesitated for a moment, and then they all felt that it made sense, so they were willing to get in the car and leave. In fact, it was not their fault that they could not move when they saw the good stuff. This was the weakness of human nature. Anyone would be interested in something that they could take without spending money, regardless of whether it was useful to them or not, or even if it was something they did not know at all. They would work hard to grab it. After getting back in the car, Lu Feng was still driving and continued to drive towards the designated location. Because they were all evolvers, and they were still in the hurricane, and they had just killed such a large tide of corpses, they were somewhat relaxed now. Everyone was chatting in the car, and there was no one on the roof. Because they had a clear goal, they did not explore to the sides along the way, and did not even pay attention to the zombies they occasionally found on the road, but just drove all the way to the location mentioned by Wang Feng before. More than 3 hours later, an accident occurred. When they passed a relatively narrow section of the road, they found that the road ahead was blocked by rocks. This was a very low hill. The road split the hill in the middle and then passed through it. As a result, when they drove between the 2 hills and had not yet gone out, several rocks rolled down in front of them, blocking the road. Lu Feng was stunned, then turned back to look at Wang Feng and smiled. "We encountered robbers. Do you want to call the police?" Wang Feng was stunned. It seems that this is the first time that he has encountered robbers since the end of the world. Even if there have been conflicts with humans in the past, it was just an accidental encounter on the way. The strong party coveted the gains of the weak party and would rob a little, but they would not go too far, at least they would leave some for the other party. Of course, if you encounter the kind of people in the Black Wolf camp who can treat people as food, it is another matter. However, the group they met now was obviously different. It seemed that they had planned it in advance, rather than acting on impulse. However, they had only decided to come here this morning, and the location was only known to the people in the car. How could they know their route in advance? With doubts in his heart, Wang Feng got off the car, and Tang Haoshan, Li Gu and Meng Fei also got off together. Li Tianxiang didn't like fighting with humans, so he stayed in the car to chat with Lu Feng. After Wang Feng and others got off the car, a man flashed out from the rocks in front. He was ragged and looked like a refugee. He was empty-handed and stood there without holding anything. When he saw Wang Feng and others getting off the car, his expression changed obviously, because Wang Feng and others were very clean, whether it was their faces or clothes, and their faces were ruddy, and there was no sign of malnutrition at all. Although they did not carry guns, but only cold weapons, the man opposite obviously felt that these guys should not be easy to mess with. This guy is not very old, that is, he is 27 or 78 years old. Although he is dressed in tatters, his face is very fair and delicate. Although he has single eyelids, his face looks a bit pre-apocalyptic. The kind of cold version of a male god that is very popular among girls. At this moment, there seemed to be a trace of struggle in his single-lidded eyes, and his 2 crescent-shaped eyebrows were almost twisted together, as if he was thinking about something important. Wang Feng and the others were not in a hurry. Instead, they looked at the guy opposite with interesting expressions. When they thought about it, this guy should not beg for mercy right away, but should turn around and run away. It doesn't matter who you are. I just want the car. Don't hurt anyone, and you can take away the things in the car. The young man seemed to have finally made a decision, clenching his fists and gritting his teeth towards Wang Feng and the others. Wang Feng and the others were stunned. This result was something they had not expected. There seemed to be something wrong with the script. Little brother? You want to steal our car? Just you? Tang Haoshan asked incredulously. Humph, the young man did not answer, snorted coldly, then waved his hand, and several figures flashed out from the mountain walls on both sides of the road ahead, holding firearms of different lengths in their hands, and there was actually one person carrying one on his shoulder. A rocket launcher, after coming out, was directly aimed at their hurricane. RPG, Tang Haoshan raised his eyebrows. This is a bit professional. However, Tang Haoshan didn't look nervous at all. The man standing next to him was a pervert who could blast 2 missiles without causing any trouble. What could a rocket launcher do? Moreover, the rate of fire of the rocket launcher is very slow, so they dodge completely in time. As for the hurricane behind you, although you can't avoid it, this is the Hurricane 2, the king of armor that can dominate the battlefield. Its frontal armor cannot be penetrated by a rocket launcher. If it is replaced by the main gun of a main battle tank, it will not bad. There was no trace of nervousness in their expressions, which made the young man opposite him feel a sinking feeling, but now it was difficult to get off the horse, and he had to get the hurricane in front of him. Again, I only want the car and nothing else, and I won't hurt anyone. Just leave the car and you can leave safely, the young man said again. What if we say no? Wang Feng said with a smile. The two sides were not far away from each other now. Wang Feng was even sure that he would kill them all within 10 seconds. However, since the young man and the others did not directly attack in secret, they would give them 1. Rockets. Wang Feng didn't want to kill too much, he was just going to give them a chance and let them retreat in spite of the difficulties. Then don't blame me for being rude, the young man gritted his teeth and said, Lu Wu, get ready. The guy carrying the RPG pointed the rocket launcher directly at Wang Feng and others, because they happened to be standing in front of the hurricane. A person behind Lu Wu moved the tail of the rocket launcher twice, and then patted Lu Wu on the shoulder, indicating that the rocket launcher was ready to be launched at any time. Last chance. Get out. Otherwise, I would rather blow up this car. The young man's delicate expression looked a little ferocious at this time. Leave now, you can take away the things in the car. Once the rocket launcher is released, what are you doing? I can't even take it away, and I have to risk my life. Are you an evolver? Wang Feng asked. The young man was stunned. Isn't this the answer he wants? But he immediately reacted and nodded, yes. I am an evolver. Although I am the only one among us, I don't think all of you are evolvers, right? Our enemies are zombies now. We are not the same kind and should not kill each other, so you might as well go and leave the car. I don't want to hurt you. Wang Feng and others were stunned. Are we looking for trouble? It was obviously you who pointed the rocket launcher at us, and then you actually said why it is not appropriate to kill each other now. How thick-skinned does this guy have to be? Wang Feng frowned. He had never had a good impression of such unreasonable people. When he heard that Lu Feng had killed more than 20,000 ordinary survivors, he thought Lu Feng was a bit cruel. But after hearing the reason, Wang Feng thought the killing was good, not because they scolded him, but because they said before, why do you have to work when you eat? Wang Feng feels that such people who can speak out unreasonable words with confidence are not worthy of sympathy. The same is true for this young man now. He clearly came to snatch his hurricane, and he said it so grandly, as if he only wanted to snatch the car. Killing is so noble. Wang Feng has murderous intentions in his heart. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 253. After the young man finished speaking, he looked at Wang Feng and the others, waiting for Wang Feng's reaction. From their expressions, they were also very nervous, but they did not get the answer they wanted. A figure flashed and appeared directly behind Lu Wu, who was carrying the RPG. He gently stretched out his hand and took the rocket launcher. With a wave of his hand, Lu Wu was waiting for the young man's order, but suddenly found that his shoulder was light. He hurriedly looked back, but unexpectedly saw a rocket launcher that was getting bigger and bigger in front of him. Ding! Judging from the sound made when the rocket launcher touched Lu Wu's head should be very hard, but he himself could not confirm this because he was knocked unconscious by the rocket launcher. Wang Feng did not kill him. The words were said by the young man. Wang Feng did not know whether Lu Wu should die, and Wang Feng did not regard himself as a messenger of justice to judge the sins of this world. The moment Wang Feng made his move, Tang Haoshan and others also made their move and rushed towards the group of young men. Among the young men, only the young man who had been talking was an evolver, and the others were still in the stage of enhancers. For other small camps, they might be a powerful force, but in front of Wang Feng and his men, they were not good enough. Even that young man did not last for 5 seconds under Tang Haoshan's hands, and flew out backwards. The others were all knocked to the ground by them. In addition to Wang Feng, there were Tang Haoshan, Gui Wuivang, Meng Fei, and Li Gu, 4 guys who had reached the second-level enhancers. It was not too easy to deal with these enhancers. However, everyone tacitly did not kill them. Even Wang Feng, who had already had murderous intentions, did not kill the young man right away, but chose to snatch the rocket launcher. Because these people might be the guardians of a camp. Although they were not good people, after killing them, their camp might be trampled by zombies because there was no one to protect them. So even if you want to kill people, you have to ask where their camp is first, and take in some survivors who are worth taking back to the Hope base before you do it. As soon as Wang Feng moved, the young man felt bad, as if he had kicked a piece of iron plate. Sure enough, in less than a minute, all the people, including himself, almost lost their ability to fight. The young man couldn't help but secretly hate his own crow mouth, saying that the other party was all evolvers, and it turned out that they were all evolvers. Wang Feng and others stood together again. Wang Feng played with the rocket launcher he had snatched in his hand, with a curious look in his eyes. "Hey lunatic! Have you played with this thing?" Tang Haoshan swallowed his saliva and asked. I really haven't played with this. It seems that when I joined the army, this thing was no longer equipped with the army," Wang Feng said a little embarrassedly. Li Gu on the side was furious and directly grabbed the rocket launcher. "You haven't played it before, why are you messing around? What if it shoots out?" "It's not that easy to shoot out, right?" Wang Feng shrugged indifferently. "Madman! You are talking more and more dirty. Do you always fire very fast?" Gui Wuivang looked at Wang Feng with a serious face and asked. "Get lost," Wang Feng was furious, "I am stronger than this rocket launcher." Swoosh! As soon as Wang Feng finished speaking, the rocket in the rocket launcher took off into the air and flew away. Everyone's eyes were focused on Li Gu holding the rocket launcher, and Wang Feng stared at Li Gu with gritted teeth. "You may not believe it, but it really flew out by itself," Li Gu said innocently, and then threw the rocket launcher aside. "I believe it," Tang Haoshan and the other 3 nodded together, and their mouths were also in unison, and even Meng Fei joined in the fun. "Humph," Wang Feng snorted coldly, ignoring these guys, and turned to look at the young man who had just climbed up from the ground. After the young man stood up, he did not run away, but walked over to help the others up. The speed that Wang Feng showed when he snatched the rocket launcher just now and the careless performance of the 5 people now let the young man know that it might be useless to run, but he would die faster. "Don't want the car now." Wang Feng was obviously in a bad mood, and even the people on the young man's side knew why. Anyway, it was not because of the wasted rocket. The young man looked back at the people around him, and then looked down at Lu Wu, who was still unconscious lying in front of him. Suddenly he looked up, looked at Wang Feng, lowered his body, knelt on his knees, and knelt down. "Please. Don't kill us. We were wrong. Sorry." As the young man spoke, he kowtowed to Wang Feng several times. The people standing behind him saw the young man's reaction, looked at each other, and showed humiliation on their faces, but they all immediately knelt on their knees like the young man and kowtowed to Wang Feng and others. Wang Feng and the others all shook their heads secretly. These people were simply scum. They were justified and self-righteous when robbing, but when they were in danger, they were so spineless. They couldn't help but look at them with a trace of contempt. "Where is your camp?" Wang Feng was too lazy to pay attention to them now. He just asked the location of their camp and then killed them. Such bullies who only bully the weak and fear the strong might turn from pitiful creatures to terrifying demons when they see humans weaker than them. Keeping them would really be a waste of the already scarce food in the world. Hearing Wang Feng's question, the young man didn't even think about it and said directly, "We don't have a camp, we are just a group of homeless people. Otherwise, we wouldn't want to steal your car. There are only 11 of us. With this, a hurricane is enough for us to live in the car." "Do you know hurricane?" Wang Feng was a little surprised. He was not a soldier, so it was difficult to recognize hurricane. What's more, the young man directly called hurricane's name. "No," the young man said, and then looked at Lu Wu lying in front of him. "Lu Wu told us that this car has strong defense and does not require any fuel." Wang Feng threw a bottle of water casually. "Wake him up." The young man took the water, but did not pour the water directly on Lu Wu's head. Instead, he dragged him up and leaned him in his arms. Then he opened the bottle cap, opened Lu Wu's mouth, and slowly poured the water in. A little. Ahem. After Lu Wu coughed twice, Yu woke up, saw the young man, and said directly, "Xiao Su. Let's go." "We can't leave," the young man smiled bitterly and shook his head. Lu Wu quickly got up, not even bothering to wipe the blood flowing from his forehead, and stood still in a daze, because only now did he realize that the people on his side were actually kneeling on the ground and looking at the young man's forehead was still kowtowed. "What are you doing?" Lu Wu said angrily. "Men can't kneel down." "Because we want to survive," the young man looked at Lu Wu calmly. Lu Wu paused. After a few breaths, he slowly turned around and looked at Wang Feng and the others. Then, his strong body slowly fell, and he also kneeled on the ground. A trace of disappointment flashed across the eyes of Wang Feng and others. They originally thought that Lu Wu would come directly to them to fight for his life, but they didn't expect that Lu Wu was also a weakling. Wang Feng shook his head, walked forward gently, and looked down at Lu Wu. Lu Wu raised his head high and stared at Wang Feng with an angry look in his eyes. Wang Feng looked at Lu Wu with a sad look in his eyes and asked softly, "Soldier?" "Humph." Lu Wu didn't answer, just snorted angrily. "Your behavior is not worthy of this title." Wang Feng still looked at Lu Wu and said calmly. "Could it be that you are completely worthy of this uniform?" A sarcastic look flashed in Lu Wu's eyes. "Don't tell me, in this apocalypse, you have never done anything to deserve this uniform." Wang Feng was stunned for a moment, and then his face became sad. He remembered that at the beginning of the apocalypse, he and Duan Lei were standing in that relatively safe building, looking through the window at the people running outside, shouting for help but being indifferent. In that scene, at that moment, no matter what the reason was, the two of them were indeed not worthy of this military uniform. Seeing Wang Feng's expression, Lu Wu seemed a little surprised. Even if Wang Feng confidently said that he was worthy of his military uniform, Lu Wu would not be so surprised. Therefore, the sarcastic look in Lu Wu's eyes was completely gone. It disappeared and was replaced by a very complicated look. In his eyes, there seemed to be memories, sympathy, helplessness, and a little bit of sadness. "You're right," Wang Feng looked at Lu Wu, "I really don't deserve it, but I will try my best, and you should have given up, right?" "Give up?" Lu Wu seemed to want to say something, but when he saw the young man on his side, he stopped talking and lowered his head. "Your surname is Su," Wang Feng turned to the young man. "Su Mo," the young man replied. "Promise?" "It's a good name," Wang Feng sneered, "but it's Su Mo." "Yan Wu Su, a strange Mo," young Su Mo interrupted Wang Feng's words and corrected him. At this time, he looked quite pleasing to the eye. If you just look at his face, he should be a relatively good person, but his behavior just now has exposed his true nature. "It doesn't matter what you call it." "Do you really have no camp?" Wang Feng confirmed for the last time. "If you have a camp, take us there, and maybe a few of you can survive. If not, I'm sorry, I don't think there is any point in your staying in this world, so, in Sumo's words, in the end give you a chance." Su Mo turned around and looked at the people behind him. All the people behind him nodded towards him, so Su Mo first said to these people, "I'm sorry. Brothers." Then he looked at Wang Feng again. "Is it true that we can't spare our lives? We should have no chance to meet each other in the future, and we will have no chance to retaliate against you. Can't we be merciful? Or you can kill me and let them go. I will deal with you." "Idea, they are just following orders, kill me, then you can take it out." "Kill me." Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 254. Wang Feng looked at Sumo's expression, and his heart moved. There was no trace of fear in Sumo's eyes. When he looked at himself, his eyes were full of expectation, as if he wanted him to kill him and let him go. "Brother." From this point of view, this person does not seem to have merits, but on this point, it still cannot change Wang Feng's decision. He just looked at Su Mo and shook his head slowly. Seeing that his request was rejected, the hope in Su Mo's eyes disappeared, replaced by an endless pain and strong unwillingness. It seemed that he saw something he cherished in his eyes moving away from him. Wang Feng sighed. He actually didn't want to kill anyone. Killing zombies didn't put any pressure on him at all, but when he killed someone, it would make him feel heavy. But because of Equation's lesson, he understood that as long as it was an enemy, it must be completely eliminated without leaving any further trouble. From here to Hope Base, there is basically no danger along the way. Who knows if these people will flee to Hope Base after he lets them go? Moreover, if these people are alive, they will also bring danger to other survivors. If Su Mo encounters some ordinary survivors instead of them today, no one can guarantee what the final outcome will be. Madman, just when Wang Feng was about to kill someone, Meng Fei, who had been watching with cold eyes, suddenly shouted. Wang Feng turned to look at Meng Fei, without saying a word, just asking Meng Fei with his eyes. Meng Fei stepped forward, knelt down in front of Su Mo, looked into his eyes and asked, "Do you need help with anything? Or do you need a hurricane in particular? Say it. Maybe we can help you." Wang Feng and Su Mo were stunned at the same time. Su Mo raised his head and looked at Wang Feng. Wang Feng nodded slightly, indicating that Meng Fei's words were also valid, but Wang Feng didn't quite understand what Meng Fei's actions meant. "As long as you don't kill us, if you really want to help, lend us the hurricane for a few days, and we will definitely give it to you in exchange." Sumo's eyes reappeared with an expectant look, and he spoke eagerly. Meng Fei said. Meng Fei shook his head, "If you don't say anything, I won't lend you the car." Su Mo looked at Meng Fei and then at Wang Feng, as if he was struggling with something in his heart. Wang Feng and Meng Fei did not rush, but just waited quietly. "Forget it. Just kill us. Anyway, the final outcome is the same. Su Mo still didn't tell the secret in his heart, and if he didn't tell, those who were with him wouldn't speak either. Meng Fei stood up, looked down at Su Mo, and suddenly a smile appeared on his face. Then, he looked at Wang Feng with a pleading look. Shall we go? After Wang Feng heard Meng Fei's words, he lowered his head and looked at Su Mo. After hesitating for a moment, he nodded gently. Let's go. After saying that, Wang Feng turned around and walked towards Hurricane. Meng Fei quickly followed and left a message to Su Mo, if it's convenient, help us move the rocks away. Make way for us. Su Mo was stunned for a moment, then realized that the other party was not going to kill them. He was overjoyed and stood up quickly, urging, quick, quick, quick. Move the stone away quickly. A group of people hurriedly moved the rocks they had pushed down to block the road, hoping to send away these evil spirits as soon as possible. Seeing Su Mo's performance, Wang Feng and others' eyes flashed with disdain again, but instead of continuing to speak, he jumped on the roof of the car and looked in front of him. Among these people, only Lu Wu did not move the rocks. He looked at the hurricane in the distance with a complicated expression. He stood at attention silently and saluted the backs of Wang Feng and the others with a standard military salute. Old Meng. What do you want to say? Wang Feng sat down directly on the roof of the car and asked calmly. I think there is a problem. These people may not be the kind of people we imagined, Meng Fei said. Didn't you notice? Although Su Mo later took the initiative to kneel and kowtow in order to survive, he seemed to be very greedy for life and afraid of death. But I never found a look of fear on his face from beginning to end. I think he may not beg you to save his life for his own sake, and the same goes for those people behind him. Generally speaking, people who kneel down to beg for mercy should have panic or fear on their faces. The expressions on those people's faces were just sadness, anger, and unwillingness. Madman. You sneak down and follow them for a while. I think they must be in trouble and they don't dare to believe us, so even if you say you want to kill them in the end, they would rather die than say why they want to rob the hurricane. Remember what they said at the beginning? We can take away as long as the car and even the things in the car. And when I finally asked him if he needed anything, he asked for a hurricane again. I guessed that they might have something that they needed to rely on. Hurricane to finish. Okay. Then I'll go take a look later. Wang Feng thought for a while and nodded in agreement. After Meng Fei said this, he also felt that something was indeed wrong, so he happened to take a look at who these guys were. After leaving the side of Su Mo and the others, Wang Feng flashed and quietly got out of the hurricane. The hurricane did not stop for a moment and continued to move forward. Wang Feng asked Meng Fei and the others to drive to a place about 50 kilometers ahead. Waiting for himself, relying on the speed of his current third-level agility evolver, even without the use of strong winds, this distance would not take long. They're gone. Su Mo put down the telescope in his hand and sighed softly. Brother Su. Maybe they. A young man in his 20s said hesitantly. Kaka. I know what you mean. But I don't dare to take risks now, forget it. Su Mo looked at the direction where Wang Feng and the others left and said softly. What should we do now? Lu Wu walked up and asked. Let's go back first. It seems that there is no harvest today. Su Mo looked at Lu Wu. The medicine can last for 3 days. Let's look around for the next 2 days. If it doesn't work, we can only take the risk and try it on the last day. Then, Su Mo walked forward along the road with a somewhat gloomy look. The direction was actually the same as the direction Wang Feng and the others left. It seems that Su Mo did not tell the truth. He did have a camp, but because of some concerns, he did not say it. Maybe he did not believe Wang Feng. This is also normal. In this dark end of the world, the word trust is impossible to appear on strangers, and even acquaintances rarely have real trust. Just an adventure. Lu Wu smiled bitterly at Su Mo's back, shook his head, and followed him. Su Mo and his friends kept walking. Along the way, the group of people kept chatting. No one noticed that Wang Feng's ghostly figure was following them from a distance. Although they were also very cautious and some people kept looking back, Wang Feng had a sky eye. He was tracking within the sight of his sky eye. These people could not see Wang Feng at all. Whenever someone among them took out a telescope to observe the surroundings, Wang Feng would temporarily hide with the help of the terrain. After walking on the road for more than an hour, Su Mo and his friends walked towards a road on the left. After walking on this path for more than an hour, a small town appeared in their sight. This town was very special. The periphery looked no different from other places in the end of the world, but the middle area was surrounded by a very high fence. In addition, wooden boards were nailed inside the fence, sealing all the gaps in the fence, so that no situation in the center of the town could be seen at all. Wang Feng was puzzled because he didn't understand what the fence was for. To defend against zombies? There was no need to build a fence that was 8 stories high, right? How could zombies jump to this height? Moreover, if the fence was so high, how could they defend against zombies? Could all the people inside fly? And outside the fence, there was a defensive wall that surrounded the fence. This defensive wall was quite normal, only about 2.5 meters high and nearly 1 meter wide, and people could stand on it. This was a more reasonable defensive wall. Moreover, there were quite a few people standing on this defensive wall patrolling around. However, perhaps due to resource issues, this defensive wall was mostly made of various car wreckages and tires. It was no problem for a small group of zombies, but it would not be very useful if a large zombie tide came. The impact of the zombie tide was enough to destroy this defensive wall. This was obviously the camp of Su Mo and his team, because after they approached the defensive wall, the guards on the wall just nodded and greeted them, and then continued their own business. Su Mo and his team did not need to open the door, they jumped directly onto the defensive wall, and then came to the fence, opened a small door, and all entered. After Wang Feng waited for them to enter, he approached carefully, while avoiding the guards, carefully observing this strange camp. Wang Feng walked around the town in a full circle, but found nothing at all, because the fence was really airtight, without even a small hole, so what was inside, Wang Feng had no idea at all. However, as the saying goes, curiosity kills the cat. For Wang Feng, this sentence also applies. If this town was just like other camps, Wang Feng might have left disappointed, but now, this high fence successfully attracted Wang Feng's attention and aroused his curiosity. After thinking about it, Wang Feng turned around and left. Lu Feng and the others were still waiting there, so he decided to go meet them first, and then come back here to check out this mysterious town. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 255. Is there such a strange fence? Lu Feng asked with a frown. At least I'm sure I saw it right, Wang Feng replied, at this time. Wang Feng has successfully reunited with everyone, and the hurricane is also heading towards the mysterious town. After hearing Wang Feng's description, everyone felt strange. They had never seen such a strange thing after the apocalypse. From what Wang Feng said, it seemed a bit like the construction sites of high-rise buildings built outside the high-rise buildings before the apocalypse. The situation is almost the same as the iron frame and then blocking it with a green net. It's just that the fence in this town is obviously tighter, so tight that there isn't even a hole. Moreover, the center of the town is very high, and there are no taller buildings around it for Wang Feng to climb up and take a look. After all. And Wang Feng also wanted to come back in a hurry, so he could meet them first and then go there together. Now Wang Feng said that he wanted to go back and see what happened. No one objected. Everyone has curiosity. Anyway, they are outside now. It's okay, and because the Black Dragon Bridge is under construction, they won't be able to go back for at least 7 days. As for the previous target location, it's on the way now anyway, and if they don't solve the mystery in their hearts, I'm afraid these people won't be willing to do it. Because of the hurricane, he arrived near the mysterious town quickly this time. It was not dark yet, so Lu Feng stopped the hurricane far away from the town, and then looked back at everyone. How to say? Meng Fei thought for a moment. Drive right over. Ah, Wang Feng and others were shocked. Don't we just want to see what's inside? Why don't we just go there? They know hurricane, so they should also know that hurricane can launch missiles, right? If we stop hurricane within their sight, they will naturally take the initiative. Come and contact us, Meng Fei said with certainty. Are you sure they won't use RPG to contact us? Tang Haoshan looked at Meng Fei with some suspicion. Impossible, Meng Fei shook his head. They have seen our strength and will not do this. Since they would rather die than reveal this place, I think this fence around it should be very important to them. They will never risk it. Lu Feng looked at Wang Feng, and Wang Feng shrugged his shoulders. Then let's go. Since Lei Ziyi is not here, this guy will be the military advisor. Wang Feng said this because Duan Lei spoke highly of Meng Fei, thinking that he had a clear mind, did not panic when encountering problems, and was very careful in his observation. Although he and Li Gu were successfully tricked by equation at the Tianhuo base, he hesitated for a moment, but that was just because he was soft-hearted and refused to take action against the ordinary people who were incited. Otherwise, he would never be trapped in his own territory. He would not be freed from his reputation as a demon until Fang Fang and the others passed by. When Su Mo met them just now, it was Meng Fei who stopped Wang Feng from going on a killing spree, and then asked Wang Feng to track Su Mo, which led to this strange discovery. Therefore, Wang Feng decided to follow Meng Fei's instructions. It's done. Wang Feng also agreed, and Lu Feng no longer hesitated and drove the hurricane towards the small town. Although the hurricane made no sound, when he was about 3 kilometers away from the town, he was still surrounded by the town. The guards discovered it, and the hurricane stopped at this distance, because here, the hurricane could just launch missiles at the town. After a while, several people ran out of the town, but there were not many, only 5 people. Wang Feng could see clearly that the leader was Su Mo, and Lu Wu was following behind him. When Su Mo saw them, his expression was not very good. If he hadn't known that he was not his opponent, he would have taken action directly. However, what surprised Wang Feng and others was that Su Mo and Lu Wu originally wore tattered clothes, like beggars before the apocalypse, but now Su Mo is wearing a clean suit and leather shoes. It was also polished, and the hairstyle could be seen to have been carefully taken care of. Although Lu Wu is not as exaggerated as Su Mo, his security uniform is still clean, with a pair of white gloves on his hands, and the leather shoes on his feet are also shiny. Wang Feng and others looked at each other and felt a little baffled. What are they doing so cleanly in this apocalyptic world? Maybe zombies will feel more palatable when they see them, but does this have any practical effect? Especially Su Mo's hairstyle. It seemed like this was the first time in the apocalypse that someone was so concerned about his hair. What are you doing here? Su Mo didn't seem to feel the surprise in Wang Feng's eyes, and asked with a livid face. His tone was a bit rude. Nothing. I was just wandering around, and I just wanted to take a look. Can I ask you, what's in that fenced-off place? Wang Feng stood on the roof of the car and asked in a leisurely tone. It has nothing to do with you. You can leave. Su Mo didn't answer at all and directly issued an eviction order. Do you think we will leave? Wang Feng said with a sneer. You are just robbers. How can there be soldiers like you? Could it be that after the end of the world, even soldiers have lost their humanity? Su Mo shouted angrily. Wang Feng felt a little funny. You came to rob us first, okay. Now he is here blaming himself righteously. I really don't know how shameless this guy is. Brother. You know hurricane, so you should know why we parked the car here? If we do it ourselves, it may not be good. Wang Feng looked at Lu Wu standing behind Su Mo and said seriously. I don't believe it. You will launch missiles at there. Lu Wu took a breath and said to Wang Feng. That's not necessarily. First, we are very curious, and second, how do I know if there are some shady things in it? In the end times for so long, we have even seen cannibalistic camps. Who can guarantee that what you do in there is fair and above board? Wang Feng said coldly. Wang Feng was right. Now they just knew that Su Mo and his men did have a camp, but judging from their previous performance, these guys might not be good people. In addition, they made this town so mysterious and covered the central location tightly, not letting anyone see it at all. If they say that what is being done inside is good for the country and the people, I am afraid no one will believe it, and Wang Feng has already decided that if there is something he does not want to see inside, and there is a scene similar to the warehouse in the Black Wolf base, he will definitely make these people regret why they were born. The camp that eats people? Lu Wu was stunned. Then he asked, how is the camp now? The camp is still there, but the people, they should be dead now, but before they die, I can be sure that they are definitely not feeling well, and I can also remind you that if you are similar to that here, you will regret why you did not commit suicide when the end of the world comes. Wang Feng's tone was full of murderous intent. Dead, Lu Wu thought for a moment after hearing Wang Feng's words, then looked at Su Mo and said, Xiao Su. Let them in. No, as if Lu Wu's words had stimulated Su Mo suddenly shouted loudly, his expression very excited, they have to go in. Unless I die. Boy. Believe me. Killing you is not a difficult thing, a few seconds are enough. Tang Haoshan looked at Su Mo coldly. Su Mo's reaction made him more certain that there would definitely be no good scenery for them to enjoy in the center of the mysterious town. Wait, Lu Wu waved his hand as if he was afraid that Tang Haoshan would kill Su Mo right now, then turned to Su Mo and said, Xiao Su. Let me tell you. Their car is not only sturdy, but also has 2 vehicle-mounted missiles. Although it is said to be ground-to-air, it is not difficult to destroy us. Besides, even if they didn't destroy the entire town, and even the sanatorium was not destroyed, do you think the fence can still be left? No matter what, the result will only be worse, so it's better to take a gamble. I don't think they are that kind of people. Hearing Lu Wu's words, Su Mo gradually calmed down. He looked at Lu Wu, and 2 lines of tears slowly fell from his eyes. Are you sure? I'm sure. Lu Wu looked into Su Mo's eyes and nodded. Oh. All right, Su Mo sighed to the sky, then said to Wang Feng and others, come on, then he turned and left. His back looked very bleak and helpless. Lu Wu looked at Su Mo's back and sighed softly, then looked at Wang Feng and nodded, let's go. I hope, you are the kind of people I imagined then. He followed Su Mo. Wang Feng smiled and said nothing. He jumped off the Hurricane directly, then waved to Lu Feng in the car, and then walked towards the mysterious town. Hurricane followed slowly behind, all the way to the outside of the defense wall. The guards on the wall looked at Su Mo, and when Su Mo nodded to them, they opened the 2 doors and let Hurricane in. After entering the defensive wall, in front of the fence, Lu Wu turned to Wang Feng and said, the Hurricane can only stop here. If you want to go in, you have to wait until night. Vehicles are prohibited from entering and exiting here during the day. Wang Feng waved to Lu Feng, and Lu Feng and Li Tianxiang got out of the car and locked the car door. It doesn't matter if they leave it outside. The Hurricane Type 2 is not so easy to steal. At this time, Su Mo, who had already walked to a small door beside the fence, suddenly turned around and looked at Wang Feng, saying word by word, after entering, it's best not to talk. I don't want you to destroy the tranquility inside. Wang Feng smiled, it depends on the situation. Try your best. Su Mo took a breath, then pushed open the small door, and said, "Welcome to Peace Town." Then, when he walked in, Lu Wu followed closely behind him. Wang Feng and others looked at each other, and also passed through the small door and entered this, Peace Town. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 256. The expressions on the faces of Wang Feng and his party who walked into the fence were all the same, shocked. Peaceful Town. As its name suggests, the town is really a peaceful town, and people are coming and going in the town. The shops on the streets are also operating normally, and there are even some buyers bargaining with the vendors on the streets. This. Wang Feng stared blankly at everything in front of him. He didn't believe his eyes. He looked back and found that the small door he passed through when he came in had been closed, and someone appeared behind him. Yes, it turned out to be a huge background painting. The scene in the painting just fit in well with the town, and it looked almost real. These people, they. Wang Feng felt that his head was not big enough. He looked at Su Mo, pointed at the scene in the town and asked, "They don't know the end of the world yet?" Wang Feng asked this question because the expressions on the faces of the people in the town were similar to those of the people in the Hope Base, but the Hope Base was because it was absolutely safe. There must be no zombies that could enter the base and threaten it. Of those survivors, this town is different. Although Wang Feng admits that the background painting is very realistic and can almost completely integrate with the town, from a safety perspective, Wang Feng does not think that this fence will be used when zombies attack. What role does time play? Strictly speaking, this town is not far from the highway. Once it encounters a zombie wave, it may not be able to defend it at all. Therefore, if the people in this small town can have such expressions, there is only one possibility, that is, they do not know that the end of the world has arrived. In particular, just now, Wang Feng even saw a person using currency from before the apocalypse when buying things from a vendor. They know, after entering the fence, Su Mo seemed to have accepted his fate, and his expression returned to normal. They are just a group of extras in this town. Extras? Wang Feng became even more confused. That's right. Extras, do you believe it? Ever since the sky fire came, we have been acting here. The people you see coming and going are actually only more than 200 people in total, but they will continue to just changing clothes, Su Mo said with emotion. Why? Wang Feng looked at Su Mo. He now felt that there must be something here that he hadn't seen, but at least now he could feel that the Su Mo really didn't seem like what he imagined. Come with me. Let you see the real audience, Su Mo said, leading the way. Along the way, he kept saying hello to the people in the town. It was not very big here, so 2 minutes later, Su Mo took Wang Feng and the others to the front of a white building. The building was not high, only 4 floors, but it was very neat. In the yard in front of the building, there were also people walking back and forth wearing white coats worn by doctors in hospitals before the apocalypse. Su Mo took Wang Feng and the others directly to a door on the side of the building. While reaching for the door handle, he looked back at Wang Feng and the others and said, "Fortunately, your clothes are very clean, so don't bother. I'm helping you are looking for clothes, but you still need to disinfect before entering. Are you okay?" "What is this place?" Wang Feng asked. "It was a sanatorium before the apocalypse and it is now, so remember, when you go in, don't mention the things in the apocalypse, zombies, evolvers, survivors, mutant beasts, don't mention all of these, because they have nothing to do with this place," Su Mo said, then opened the door and walked in first. Wang Feng looked back at everyone, and then followed in. Lu Wu followed everyone in, and closed the door. Behind the door, there was just a very ordinary room with about 40 people. Wang Feng and others were standing in this room, looking at Suemo. Suemo looked at them and said, "We have to disinfect before we can enter the sterile area, so don't be nervous." After speaking, he pointed to a disinfection room next to him that was similar to a phone booth and said, "When you enter there, press the red button, and after 5 seconds, if the green light on the platform lights up, you can exit from the other side." After saying that, Suemo was still the first to walk in, closed the door, and pressed the red button. 5 seconds later, a green light on the workbench came on, and Suemo opened the door on the other side and walked out. And closed the door. Because the disinfection room was completely transparent, Wang Feng could see Sumo's movements clearly. After Suemo passed by, he just stood there quietly and looked at Wang Feng and the others without urging him. Wang Feng looked at Meng Fei, and Meng Fei nodded, so Wang Feng stepped forward and opened the door of the disinfection room and left. "Go in, press the button until the green light turns on, then release the button, and then go out from Sumo's side." After Wang Feng took the lead, Tang Haoshan and others also disinfected themselves one by one, and then went to Suemo. The last person to disinfect was still Lu Wu. After all the people came over, Suemo turned around and continued to lead the way. As he walked, he said, "Let me introduce my identity first. It's my identity after the apocalypse. You already know my name. What I learned before the apocalypse is after graduating from nursing major, I came to this nursing home for internship. This sanatorium is considered a relatively high-end sanatorium, but the people living in it are all commoners. It is said that a rich man built it for his father, so that his father could be with more peers and reminisce about them. In the past, the fees here are not high. And because the location here is relatively remote and there are no specialties in this town, the only advantage is that there is no pollution, the air is not bad, and the surrounding scenery is quite impressive. When the sky fire came in the apocalypse, it happened to be nap time in the nursing home. Although there were a few old people who didn't like taking naps, they all passed the time in the chess and card room. Fortunately, the center of this town was not affected by the sky fire attack. Later, after going through some twists and turns, we killed all the mutated zombies in the town, cleared them out, and then built the place into what you see now. When Suemo said this, his expression was a little sad. It seemed that although he was very brief and talked about how to kill zombies and build the place in a single sentence, what happened at that time was definitely very tortuous. However, Wang Feng and the others did not notice Sumo's expression, because they were shocked by everything they saw. They were walking in a corridor. On both sides of the corridor, there were rooms similar to wards. Each there are 4 beds in the room, and on each bed, there is an old man who is 70 or 80 years old or older. Wang Feng and the others swore that they had never seen so many old people after the end of the world. Perhaps due to physical reasons, when the sky fire came in the end of the world, the vast majority of the elderly lost their lives in the disaster, otherwise he directly turned into a zombie, or was caught by a zombie because of his inability to move. This is also because at that time, most of these elderly people were at home alone or with an old couple, and the children they had raised with so much hard work were mostly busy with their own careers, or playing with their peers, happy and wanton. Not many people would like to stay with this old man and endure their seemingly endless nagging. Even if the rich man who built this nursing home was willing to spend huge sums of money to build such a large-scale nursing home for his father to take care of him in his old age, he seemed to be very filial, but he also just attracted a lot of old men and women. Come to accompany his father, because he believes that people of any age like to be with their peers. As for what the old man really likes, either he doesn't know, or he just pretends not to know because he is very busy making money so that he can let his father live a better life. This excuse has been used by countless people come to deceive themselves for countless years, until, they no longer need any excuses, nor do they need to accompany their parents. What the elderly actually like most is to have their children by their side, allowing them to nag them, pamper them, and even tell them again, as they did in the past. On his lap, he listened carefully to the story that he had told him countless times, but still pestered himself to tell him one last time all day long. Although, the old man may not remember the story clearly. Therefore, even in the Hope Base, there are basically no elderly people over the age of 60, not to mention there are so many elderly people in their 70s or 80s here. Walking in this corridor, Wang Feng and others all he was cautious and gentle, not even daring to breathe out, for fear of disturbing the elderly people who were watching TV, lying on the bed and chatting, or turning their heads to look at him curiously through the glass window of the ward. In each ward, there are 2 or 1 nursing staff wearing white coats and masks, staying in the room, either chatting with the elderly, helping the elderly clean their bodies, or busy with other things. No one cared at all about what happened to Wang Feng and others. A corridor of less than 50 meters, Wang Feng and the other evolutionaries seemed to have walked harder than 50 kilometers. When they reached the end of the corridor and turned into the stairs, the 6 of them collapsed to the ground almost at the same time, hoping that the base among the people, the only one who was still standing was Lu Feng, because he was an orphan. For him, the scene in front of him could not bring any touch to him. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 257. Lu Feng was not touched, but for Wang Feng and his people, walking through this corridor, they seemed to have experienced a spiritual torture. As evolvers, walking through a 50-meter corridor, they seemed to have experienced a shocking battle, and collapsed to the ground with exhaustion. Even Tang Haoshan, a generous man, couldn't help crying. They all thought of their parents and relatives. Some of them had died in this apocalypse, and some were still in danger of death. Su Mo and Lu Wu stood silently behind Lu Feng. Seeing Wang Feng and his people's performance, Su Mo now believed in Lu Wu's judgment a lot, and he didn't worry so much about Wang Feng and his people. Because Wang Feng and his people's performance showed that their humanity was not wiped out by this apocalypse. They still knew sadness and knew how to cry. They were not those humans who only knew how to survive and could do anything, even more terrifying and cruel than zombies. After an unknown amount of time, their emotions gradually stabilized. Wang Feng slowly stood up and turned to look at Su Mo. Just as he was about to speak, Su Mo stopped him with his hand. "Come with me first. We can talk there. There are also elderly people upstairs. Maybe someone will come down." Then, Su Mo turned and walked out of the stairwell, returned to the corridor he had just walked through, and continued to walk forward. However, this time, he turned right at a passage in the middle of the corridor and brought Wang Feng and the others to a room. After walking through the corridor again, Wang Feng and the others still looked at the elderly people in the wards on both sides, looking at their peaceful smiles and peaceful demeanors. Some elderly people even noticed them and raised their hands to wave at them gently, with a kind smile on their wrinkled faces. After entering the room, Lu Wu, who had been in charge of the rear guard mission, closed the door and locked it. Su Mo then signaled everyone to find a place to sit down. Fortunately, there was a row of sofas in the room, as well as 2 desks and several chairs, so everyone had a place to sit. Su Mo sat behind a desk, and Wang Feng naturally sat opposite him. After Wang Feng and Su Mo looked at each other for a while, Wang Feng gently asked, Were you so afraid of death at that time because of them?" "That's right," Su Mo nodded, "I am the only evolver in this place. The highest among the others is Lu Wu, a second-level enhancer. If I die, this place may not be able to hold on. Don't all those old people know the situation outside?" Wang Feng was a little unbelievable. "It was too difficult to do this." "I don't know. After we found that living people would turn into zombies to attack people, we told these old people that there was a military exercise outside and they couldn't watch it. We asked all the caregivers to draw the curtains and accompany the old people in the house." Su Mo seemed to have returned to the time when the end of the world happened, and his eyes were a little blurred. This town is called Chitang Town. As Su Mo said before, it is geographically remote and has no special products, so the population is not large. In fact, it can be regarded as a larger village, but it is just a town in name. When the Sky-fire descended, fortunately, the town center was not visited by any Sky-fire, only some fell on the periphery, and that day happened to be the day when the town's school organized an activity to visit the elderly. All the children in the school were in the sanatorium, but because the elderly were sleeping, these children were cleaning the activity room where the elderly usually lived. Perhaps because of this, there were not many zombies in Chitang Town, and when they found out that it was zombies, Su Mo, who often watched zombie movies, found that the situation in front of him was similar to those zombie movies he had watched. In horror, he loudly said his guess. After hearing Su Mo's words, of course, the others did not believe it at first. The director of the sanatorium, who was the agent left here by the rich man, even scolded Su Mo and went to check the condition of the controlled patients. As a result, when he was bitten by his own patient and mutated, the people in the town began to believe Su Mo and slaughtered the zombies. Because only some meteorites of the Sky-fire fell on the edge, and the population of the town was concentrated in the center of the town, their town might be the place with the largest ratio of living people to zombies after the Sky-fire fell. With this advantage, they quickly cleared the zombies in the entire town, and under the leadership of Su Mo, they concentrated all the supplies in the periphery to the center of the town, and then directly built a defense wall, because at that time the chaos had just begun, and there were no zombies from other places coming here to attack them, so they had plenty of time to do these works. Because there happened to be an engineering team in the town building a project, it was naturally unnecessary to continue now, and instead cooperated with them to build defenses. While watching these people busy in the town, Su Mo returned to the sanatorium. He had tried to contact his father before, but the moment the Sky-fire fell, all communications in the world were interrupted, and he naturally couldn't contact anyone. Su Mo is a filial son, and precisely because of this, he studied nursing. He was assigned to the sanatorium for internship, and planned to return to his hometown after the internship, find a job there, and then stay with his father and take care of him himself. But now, it seems that his internship has ended early. Unable to contact his father, Su Mo returned to the sanatorium to see how the elderly were doing. But at this moment, he suddenly remembered that there was a zombie movie in which the earliest zombies were formed because they inhaled some toxic gas. Thinking of the zombies he had just encountered, some of them had no scars on their bodies. Su Mo couldn't help but wonder if the gas in the air could also infect people. So he immediately activated the closed system of the sanatorium, which was also built by the rich man at a high price. In fact, he wanted to show off his status, because strictly speaking, this system had no chance to be used for the sanatorium. However, at that time, the rich man heard that there were definitely no more than 20 sanatoriums with this system in the world. The rich man decided on the spot to install another set directly. Moreover, because this system was an emergency system, it could be activated when there was no external power supply. However, it needed to supply the fuel needed for the self-generating system. The rich man directly stored this fuel for a whole year. Of course, that was before the end of the world. After the end of the world, this system was finally activated by Su Mo for the first time. Originally, Su Mo did not have this authority, but because he was present when the dean died, he took all the dean's keys and magnetic cards, because he knew that these would definitely be useful in the future. The closed system can only target the main building of the sanatorium, but fortunately, all the elderly are now in the main building, because the activity room is also inside, so all the elementary school students are also locked in by the closed system. It must be said that Su Mo's move really saved a lot of people, because later, with the increase of life experience in the end of the world, Su Mo found that when the Sky-fire came, he didn't know whether it was infected by gas, but it was really people with weak constitutions who were most likely to be infected, especially the elderly. Children just have poor physical strength, but their constitutions are not weak. If you don't believe me, jump with your children and see who can last longer. Children are even more energetic than adults. It's just that the end of the world was too chaotic at the beginning. Children without adult protection didn't know how to react when they were attacked. They just stayed there and cried. This method that worked for parents was completely ineffective against zombies. Therefore, there are the fewest elderly and children in the world now, and Sumo's actions made all the elderly and children survive. The purpose of the closed system was to protect the building from biological and chemical attacks. The rich man must not have thought that his show-off would actually save his father's life, because the closed system would close the entire main building to form a closed space, and the air would be exchanged with the outside world by the air purification system. Once this system is turned on, outsiders who want to enter must undergo full-body disinfection before they can enter. When Sumo entered the sanatorium, the first thing he saw was the children running excitedly in the sanatorium, interacting with the elderly, singing, dancing, and listening to grandparents telling stories. Sumo, who was worried about his father, was suddenly stunned when he saw this scene. He remembered the scene when he was a child, when his father took him to play games and told him stories. Looking at the children and the elderly who got along well in front of him, and the happy smiles on their faces, Sumo couldn't help but think, when they know the news from the outside world, will they still smile like this in the future? So, Sumo came up with a great idea, and when he told others about this idea, most of the survivors in the town agreed, because there was only one school and one sanatorium in this town, and the children or parents of these survivors were naturally all in it. Therefore, because of Sumo's accidental thought, perhaps the only group of people in this world who had no idea of the apocalypse and always thought they were still living in a normal world appeared. They were the survivors who didn't know about the apocalypse. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 258. Sumo stood up and walked to the window, his tone suddenly becoming cheerful. That's it? We built the fence you saw to block the outside view, and cleaned up the buildings inside. In addition, we asked the survivors in the town to go outside to perform at a fixed time every day. In this way, when the old people look out the window, they will see that nothing has changed, and they will not think that this world is no longer the same as it was before. Haha. Actually, I used to think about whether I could be an actor or even a director. I didn't expect that in this Doomsday, I actually directed a film, a TV series, which has been acting for 8 or 9 months, but it may not last long at this point. Sumo's voice was a little sad. Lu Wu walked to his side, gently patted his shoulder, and sent silent comfort. After listening to Sumo's story, Wang Feng and the others were silent. Although Sumo did not explain in detail how to hide the tall fence from the old people and how to spray the patterns on it, Wang Feng and the others could imagine the difficulty. Then, what did you rely on to hold on until today? I mean, the source of supplies here. And the medicines needed by the old people, Wang Feng asked. The remains before the end of the world, and what we collected when we went out. Sumo smiled, the people who robbed you with me at the beginning, and the guards on the defensive wall outside, these are our combatants. At first, the number of our combatants exceeded 1,000, but now there are less than 100. The extras in the town, because they were so immersed in the play, actually regarded this town as a paradise that was not invaded by the end of the world. They refused to join the battle, and we didn't force them. They had hope in their hearts, even if it was self-deception, it was better than nothing. In order to save fuel, we always walked out, and then drove back when we found a vehicle, pumped out the fuel, and left it for the power generation system. Fortunately, I became an evolver later and took them out to search for supplies. It reduced a lot of casualties, otherwise, This place might have been without combatants long ago. This is because after we knew the existence of the evolvers, when we went out and encountered zombies, almost all the spoils belonged to me, and the liquid in the zombies was absorbed by me alone, because Lu Wu and others said that no matter how many enhancers there were, it was not as safe as having an evolver. Because of this, until now, Lu Wu is only a second-level enhancer, and he only advanced after I became an evolver. Su Mo looked at Lu Wu beside him, with emotion in his eyes. Without their support, I would not be here today. Why did you do this? These old people are not related to you, right? Wang Feng asked, looking into Su Mo's eyes. Because I was not with my father when the end of the world happened, I don't know if he is still alive. I only know that if he is still alive, he would hope to have the kind of life he has now. If you think of others, these old people must also need it. Su Mo looked at Wang Feng and answered. In his eyes, there was a brilliance that Wang Feng had never seen before. This brilliance was very pure and had a hint of holiness. Think of others. Wang Feng slowly stood up and came to Su Mo and Lu Wu, as if he knew what he was going to do. Tang Haoshan and others also came behind Wang Feng and looked at Su Mo and Lu Wu in front of him with Wang Feng. Su Mo and Lu Wu were not panicked. There was only a hint of inquiry in their eyes when they looked at Wang Feng and others. Bang! Wang Feng suddenly pushed the golden mountain over and overturned the jade pillar. Like Su Mo before, he knelt on his knees and knelt in front of Su Mo. Then, bang 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 bang, he kowtowed several times. Tang Haoshan and others also made the same action as Wang Feng. Only Lu Feng and Li Tianxiang still stood there straight. However, they stood at attention and saluted Su Mo and Lu Wu solemnly with solemn expressions. This is what you gave me before. Now I give it back to you because I can't bear your gift. Wang Feng kowtowed and knelt on the ground and said. After saying this, he slowly stood up and looked at Su Mo in front of him. There was incomparable solemnity and respect in his eyes. Wang Feng and others' actions shocked Su Mo and Lu Wu. They stood there blankly and didn't even reach out to help Wang Feng and others up. The two looked at Wang Feng and others blankly, and tears instantly burst out. The blood gushed out of their eyes, flowed down their cheeks, and dripped onto the ground. At this moment, the emotions that had been suppressed in the hearts of Su Mo and Lu Qiang since the end of the world finally burst out. After the sky fire descended, everything they had paid was finally rewarded. After the end of the world began, Su Mo and his friends went from the initial fear and hesitation to the midterm longing and persistence to the current exhaustion and confusion. All the hard work, sacrifice, helplessness and pain they had experienced disappeared without a trace in Wang Feng's kneeling. Any one of these people in front of them could flatten their town and kill all of them, but these strong men, these unyielding and proud soldiers, just knelt on their knees in front of them and bent their upright backbones. When Su Mo and the others knelt down and begged for mercy, it was not for their own lives, but for the ideals they protected. For these reasons, the old people who still don't know the end of the world is coming, and they don't know what zombies are, if they are all killed, this town it won't be long before things get completely out of control. All they do is delay the end of the world for more than half a year. Wang Feng and the others stood there quietly, watching Su Mo and Lu Wu silently venting the burdens that had been accumulated in their hearts for a long time. After more than half an hour, Su Mo and Lu Qiang's emotions gradually stabilized. They stretched out their hands to wipe away the tears on their faces. Su Mo closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and then opened his still red eyes. Looking at Wang Feng, he smiled softly. Sorry, I'm a little out of control. Wang Feng shook his head, turned to look out the window, and said with emotion, You are very powerful. If it were me, I don't know if I can persist until now. We don't know, we don't even know how long we can hold on. We just hold on to the idea of not giving up if we can hold on, and we have been struggling until now. Su Mo also looked out the window and said with infinite emotion. Actually, we think it's a miracle that we can persist until now. To be honest, we have saved these old people, but these old people have also saved us, because in our hearts, they are the goal for us to persist. If not they, maybe we have dispersed long ago. When I said I wanted to help you, why didn't you accept it? Meng Fei suddenly asked. Because we met some survivors before and brought them back. Unexpectedly, those people caused a lot of trouble for us. In the end, we lost a lot of manpower to deal with them. Lu Wu answered Meng Fei's question for Su Mo. Not only did they think it was a waste of resources for us to raise those old people, they also tried to incite the people in the town to launch riots. Fortunately, most of the people in the town had relatives there, so there were very few people incited by them, but in order to quell that riot, we still suffered a lot of losses, if not. Speaking of this, Lu Wu looked at Su Mo and did not continue. It seemed that the following things were related to Su Mo. Alas! If it weren't for Xiao Yu's appropriate reaction at that time, the drama we had been acting would have been exposed that day. Xiao Yu is a girl. The nurse here is also my girlfriend. During the riot, she tried to stop the riot. The thugs entered here to buy us time. In the entrance room where we entered, the zombie virus was released in reverse, and those who tried to break in here turned into zombies. Su Mo sighed and continued talking, with a hint of sadness in his eyes, as if he was recalling the situation at that time. When we arrived, the room was already full of zombies, including Xiaoyu. She was killed by me myself. At the end of the sentence, Su Mo clenched his fists. Wang Feng reached out and patted Su Mo's shoulder without saying anything. Then, why did you want the hurricane? Meng Fei asked Lu Qiang again. Because we are going to the city to get some resources. For such a long time, we have looted all the nearby places where supplies are stored. And, most importantly, we are running out of medicines. Among the elderly, among them, many people need to take medicine every day. There is a 98-year-old Uncle Zhang who only has a few days' worth of medicine. If he doesn't think of a way, once he loses the supply of medicine, he will. Lu Qiang replied, there are two cities closest to us, one is Juking City in the north, and the other is Haki City in the south. We have investigated both cities, and they have been completely occupied by zombies. Moreover, there seem to be signs of human survival in the center of the two cities, but they are surrounded by zombies and cannot get out, and we can't get in. Because we want to save fuel, we haven't kept any vehicles for our own use. The vehicles we collected before have been destroyed and used to build the defensive wall outside. Now that we have to enter the city, we need a strong vehicle. A great car. When we went out this time, we originally wanted to go to Haki City to try our luck and see if we could find a car on the edge of Haki City. Unexpectedly, we saw your hurricane, so. At this point, Lu Wu looked a little embarrassed. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 259. After hearing Lu Wu's words, Wang Feng and others finally understood. Wang Feng shook his head and said with a wry smile, actually, Haki City is safe now. If you hadn't robbed our car, you might be happily in Haki now. Shopping in Chi City. What? Su Mo and Lu Wu exclaimed together, and then looked at each other. What do you mean? Su Mo asked softly. We have solved the sea of corpses in Haki City. Although not all of them have been killed, the rest have also escaped. Even if there are zombies in Haki City now, they are just a few wanderers. There is no danger for you to go in. Wang Feng nodded and said with certainty, of course he was sure, because they just came from there. Thinking that he had just arrived, Wang Feng's heart moved. He looked at the space in this room and felt that it was enough, so he said to Su Mo, I have some medicine here. See if there is anything you need. Then, ignoring Sumo's somewhat surprised look, he went directly to the open space in the room, squatted down, and took out most of the medicines he had previously searched in Haki City. Wang Feng was not stingy, but once. If all the sects were taken out, the pile would be so high that it would be impossible to distinguish. Su Mo and Lu Wu were dumbfounded as they looked at the mountains of medicines piled on the ground, and for a moment they didn't understand where they came from. Don't think about it. You are an evolver. You should know that evolvers have superpowers. This is my superpower, a superpower of the space system. Wang Feng patted Sumo's shoulder. Hurry and see if you have it. There's more, I'm afraid it will be piled up and hard to find. Are these for us? Su Mo asked hesitantly. Yeah. And it's not just these, there are more. Wang Feng gave Su Mo a positive answer. Put it all here. I'll ask someone to come and inventory it right away. Su Mo suddenly jumped up. The most worrying thing was suddenly solved. He was not polite, for fear that Wang Feng would hide his secrets or change later. Idea, and immediately asked Wang Feng to put all the medicines here. Wang Feng smiled, and then he was not stingy and directly threw all the medicines in Tiankai space into this room. Seeing so many medicines, Su Mo couldn't help but tremble slightly, and quickly said to Lu Wu, Lu Wu. Hurry, find people, the more the better, let them count the medicines, and then sort them into the warehouse. Then, Su Mo turned around and looked at Wang Feng, but before he could speak, Wang Feng had already stretched out his hand to stop him, and at the same time shook his head and said, You don't have to thank me. In fact, I should be the one to say thank you. We have established a base. It can be said that the conditions are much better than yours, and it is safer. The population is 700,000. However, we seem to have overlooked one point. Although our slogan is to continue the hope of mankind and inherit human civilization, we only focused on women and children. We did not expect that there are elderly people. We pay attention to our next generation, but forget that there are 1 or even 2 generations above us, and it is because of their existence that we are what we are now. I think you can consider moving all these old people to our place. I can arrange them in the best building in the entire base. When they look down, they don't need any cover, or if they need to act, they can see the world that is the same as before the end of the world. Su Mo lowered his head and thought for a while, then shook his head. It's not that I don't believe you, but these people can't be moved now. You should know when you come in that we have all been disinfected. I suspect that the air outside it may infect these elderly people and cause them to develop disease and turn into zombies without being exposed to zombies. So, I can't take the risk and let them come into contact with the outside air. I have persisted until now and cannot give up halfway, Su Mo said softly. Thank you for your kindness. I know you mean it, but I can only accept it with my heart. You still don't understand what I mean. Wang Feng shook his head and saw that Lu Wu had brought people in, so he said to Su Mo, Are there any other rooms? Yes, Su Mo nodded, and then led them to a room next door. This room looked like a ward, but there was no one in it. Lu Wu also followed and closed the door. I got a message that in more than 2 months, our world will undergo another drastic change. Although I don't know what it is, I feel it should be similar to the time when the sky fire came, and it will cover the whole world. The person who provided me with this information also said that during this drastic change, try not to hide in buildings. I believe what he said. Therefore, I think you should also let these old people gradually adapt to the outside world of air. More than 2 months later, Su Mo asked. That's right. Moreover, there was only 1 year between the day the heavenly fire came. Wang Feng nodded. How did you get this information? Su Mo frowned. If what Wang Feng said was true, then this would definitely be a troublesome matter for him. Wang Feng briefly recounted the process of entering the Sci-Fi base, leaving the Sci-Fi base, being attacked by missiles, being rescued by the old man, and obtaining this information. When Wang Feng said that he flew to detonate the missile, Su Mo and Lu Wu were moved at the same time, and Lu Wu even shouted, "What a man!" Wang Feng was not showing off, but to show that the old man did not deceive him, so he had to describe his escape process simply, so as to prove the ability of the old man. After listening to Wang Feng's words, Su Mo's brows were twisted together. Judging from Wang Feng's words, the old man's words should be highly credible, unless Wang Feng was lying to him, but was it necessary for Wang Feng to lie to him? If there were only beauties here, it would be fine. A group of old men and old ladies, what else can they do except increase their burden? Lu Wu also felt that things were not good, and looked directly at Wang Feng. "What suggestions do you have? There are still more than 2 months now, I think there should be a way." Wang Feng thought for a while and said, "Please take me to see those old people first, let me see if my idea is feasible." Lu Wu looked at Su Mo, Su Mo nodded slightly, and Lu Wu took Wang Feng out. "How big is your base?" After Wang Feng and Lu Wu went out, Su Mo looked at Tang Haoshan and others and asked. "Do you know Black Dragon City?" Tang Haoshan said with a smile. "Yes. I been to Jianguan town over there, it's a very nice place," Su Mo said. "It's that big," Tang Haoshan nodded. "We have cleared all the zombies in Black Dragon City now, and even the mutant beasts on Black Dragon Mountain are almost extinct, but Jianguan town is not safe yet, because we are worried that mutant beasts will appear in the sea, so we haven't set up a residential area there. But the plan is to build a defense facility in Jianguan town to defend against marine mutant beasts that may appear in the future, but the Black Dragon Bridge is still being renovated, so we can only wait for a while." "So big? Your strength must be very strong, right?" Su Mo exclaimed. "Well, it should be considered strong. At least, if you go there, you should be able to see more than 2,000 people with your strength." Lu Feng smiled. More than 2,000. More than 2,000 evolvers. Su Mo was completely dumbfounded this time, but his heart was really shaken. His main goal in this doomsday is to protect those helpless old people. Not to mention the safety of his side, the power of protection is obviously insufficient. They are lucky and have not been attacked by large-scale zombies, so they have been able to hold on until today. But the information he got today made him worried. Moreover, after seeing the strength of Wang Feng and others, Su Mo fully understood that relying on the strength of these people alone was not enough to protect this town. However, the problem now is that even if he wants to move to the Hope base, how can those old people be transferred? Su Mo will never let these old people risk being exposed to the air. Many of the children who hid in the sanatorium before have now run to live in the town outside, because they found that some children who stayed in the town were not infected. It seems that children have stronger resistance in this regard. And the old people who did not enter the sanatorium did not survive in the town, which is why Su Mo did not dare to take risks. After a while, the door of the room opened, and Wang Feng walked in with a frown. No one in the room spoke, but looked at Wang Feng quietly. "Time is not enough," Wang Feng said. He just went to those rooms and checked the bodies of those old people. Although these old people still live a happy life with no worries about food and clothing in this doomsday, they are old and weak after all. The test results of Tiankai show that these old people cannot use strengthening potions. Originally, Wang Feng wanted to give these old people strengthening potions. After they become strengtheners, they will naturally no longer be afraid of the zombie virus in the air. However, now these old people's physique is not enough to withstand strengthening potions. According to the data reported by Tiankai, the success rate is 50%. In other words, if these old people use strengthening potions, there is a 50% chance of becoming strengtheners, and the other 50% chance is to explode and die. Wang Feng can't accept this probability anyway, and he knows that Sumo will not accept it either. The most important thing is that this 50% does not necessarily mean that half of these old people can survive. Who can tell the probability clearly? Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 260. Since the strengthening liquid doesn't work, then we can only consider the meat of mutant beasts. However, this time Wang Feng only brought out a few corpses of mutant beasts, and there is not so much stock. Moreover, according to Tiankai's prediction, it will take at least 3 months for all these old people to reach the level of using strengthening potions, and they only have more than 2 months left before the second crisis. Bang, Wang Feng threw out a corpse of a mutant beast, looked at Sumo and said, "These days, we have to make soup with mutant beast meat every day for these old people to drink. In addition, we have to think of a way to allow these old people to move to the Hope base without contacting the outside air. By the way, there is a biochemical defense system here, don't you have matching protective clothing?" Wang Feng suddenly remembered this matter and asked. No, Sumo shook his head, the rich man installed this system mostly to show off his wealth. How could he have thought that he would really use it? There are protective clothing, but there are only 10 sets, just for show. Is there no place around? Wang Feng asked again. There are some in Juking City, but... Sumo looked helpless. Okay. That's it? We'll set off soon. Go to Juking City, and you arrange someone to follow us. Wang Feng interrupted Sumo's words and said without hesitation. It's going to be dark soon, and it's far away from Juking City. Sumo was stunned. There's no time to lose, Wang Feng said, just arrange some people for me, and I'll take care of the details. Wait. If you go to Juking City, you really have to discuss it carefully, because there is a biochemical research institute there, and there must be a lot of protective clothing inside, and the most important thing is that they have more than 20 anti-chemical vehicles there. If you want to move, those vehicles are very useful, Sumo said. We also thought about that before, and wanted to get a few back to prevent the outside, but because there are too many zombies there, and there are mutant zombies, we dare not act rashly. Well, that's good. Then give us more people, and we'll drive those cars back. Wang Feng nodded and said. Are you sure we should leave now? Sumo asked again. Yes. Sure. Didn't you say the distance is far? Let's leave early. Lend me some of your combatants. They don't need to fight. They just need to drive when the time comes. Wang Feng nodded, and at the same time, he walked to the depths of the room and kept all the food he had looted in Haki City before. Distribute these foods as you see fit. It should be enough to last for a while, and you, stay here. There are no evolvers in this town. It would be bad if something unexpected happened. You just stay here. When we leave later, we will leave someone outside to help you guard this town. Okay, Sumo nodded, without saying much, but turned to Luwu. Luwu. Understood. Although Sumo only called Luwu's name, Luwu also knew what it meant, and nodded in response. Luwu knows the situation over there, let him take you there. Sumo turned to Wang Feng again, looking at him and said. Yeah, Wang Feng nodded, then took out a map, spread it on the ground, pointed to a place on it and said, this is where we are. This is Haki City. Where is the place you mentioned? It's right here, Luwu pointed to a place on the map and said. Haha. It's not far. Seeing the place Luwu pointed out, Lu Feng and Tang Haoshan were very happy, because the place Luwu pointed out was less than 100 kilometers away from the place they said they were going to explore before. What do you mean not far? Luwu was a little confused. We were originally going to go here, but we met you. Now looking at the place you said, it's not far from our previous goal. Wang Feng pointed to the place Luwu pointed out on the map and said. The place you mentioned is the center of Juking City, which is where we found survivors. In fact, there seem to be many places in Juking City with survivors, but there are too many zombies there, and after experiencing that incident, we didn't plan to accept survivors again, so we didn't look for them carefully, Lu Wu said after looking at the place Wang Feng pointed out. Oh. So that's it? Forget it for now, we'll talk about it after we set off, Wang Feng said, stood up, and nodded to Su Mo, we will be back soon. Well. I'll wait for you here, Su Mo nodded, and then watched Lu Wu and Wang Feng leave. He did not leave the room. After everyone left, he turned around and looked at the food in the room and the mutant beast on the ground that was as big as a cow, muttering to himself, I still doubted them. Now what they left behind, I'm afraid we can't even exchange it for this town. Lu Wu took Wang Feng and others out of the sanatorium. It was not that complicated to go out. At least they didn't have to go through one by one. They just went into a room, closed the door they came out of, and then went out from another door. When they arrived in the town, because it was not dark yet, there were still many survivors wandering on the street in the town, and children kept playing with each other on the road. Because it was discovered that children would not mutate even if they lived in the air of the end of the world, most of the children who had been hiding in it had already run out. After all, children are not old people and are active by nature. No matter how big the sanatorium is, it is still a closed space. No child likes to stay in it all day. Therefore, there are only a dozen orphans in the sanatorium now who are unwilling to come out. The other children have already run out and live with their families. This is also the normal life mode before the end of the world. Su Mo and his friends will naturally not stop them. For those elderly people who want to go home to see, they refuse to let them go out on the grounds that the smog outside is heavy and the air is not good. Moreover, their families also visit them from time to time under Su Mo's arrangement, which allows these elderly people to live in it for so long without any suspicion. After arriving in the town, Lu Wu did not stop. They did not have many combatants, and they needed to change clothes after entering the fence to avoid being discovered by the elderly. Therefore, generally speaking, combatants were unwilling to go in. Although the atmosphere inside was very good, that world, it doesn't belong to them. After going out of the small door, Lu Wu directly called a group of fighters. They usually guarded on the defense wall. When they rested, they slept in several tents set up between the fence and the defense wall. Looking at these ragged but energetic fighters, Wang Feng nodded secretly in his heart. These are real warriors. They do the most dangerous work and live in the worst conditions, but they still have no regrets. Moreover, Wang Feng also found that there are many ordinary people among them. Are there any who are not enhancers? Wang Feng asked in surprise. Well, because we want to push Su Mo to the level of an evolver first, and then improve the strength of others below, so. Lu Wu's words were a little sad, but he immediately added, this is unanimously agreed by everyone, and they are voluntary. Well, I believe they are voluntary, Wang Feng nodded. Seeing the expressions of these warriors, he knew that there was no need to doubt this. The guards outside quickly gathered together, because the center of this town is not big, so if something happens, it will be in time to rush over. How many ordinary people are there? Please raise your hands. Wang Feng looked at the soldiers in front of him and asked. After Wang Feng's words came out, there was no reaction in the crowd. Their eyes were all focused on Lu Wu. Lu Wu shouted, those who are not enhancers, raise your hands. Swish, as soon as Lu Wu finished speaking, more than 30 arms were raised instantly. There were only more than 80 people in total, and nearly half of them were ordinary people. Wang Feng was really a little unbelievable, but thinking of Lu Wu's words, they were for Su Mo's achievement. This was not the Tianhuo base in Haki City, and there were not so many zombies. Even if there were tens of millions of zombies in Haki City, there were only 7 evolvers in the Tianhuo base. Relatively speaking, it was indeed quite difficult for an evolver to appear in this small town. If Wang Feng hadn't appeared, perhaps there wouldn't be an evolver in Black Dragon City now. This is the difference between small places and big cities. Small places are easier to survive because there are fewer zombies, but there aren't many strong ones either, of course, because there are fewer zombies. This time, all ordinary people will follow us, and the enhancers will stay to guard the town, Wang Feng said to Lu Wu, and then turned to look at the people around him. We will leave one to assist them, who will stay? Tang Haoshan and others looked at each other, and they didn't seem to want to give up this opportunity to go out and have fun. I'll stay. Seeing that no one spoke, Li Tianxiang stood up and said, he found that these warriors seemed to have some of the same temperament as the warriors of the Guardian Corps, so he decided to stay and get in touch with these people. Agree. As soon as Li Gu's words came out, all the others spoke up immediately, fearing that Li Tianxiang would regret it. Okay. Then. Get ready to go. Wang Feng nodded to Li Tianxiang, then jumped directly onto the roof of the hurricane. All the other evolvers, except Lu Feng, followed Wang Feng and jumped up. Only Lu Feng shook his head, got into the car and acted as the driver.